Now, if you're like me, and if you're like a lot of kids in my generation that used to wait for Shindig to come on ABC at night just so we would see this young lady sing, it was quite a show, quite a sight, and she really was America's sweetheart, in many ways still is, and to all of us in my generation will continually always be. I can't tell you how honored I am to be introducing Donna Loren, musician, actress, and active to this day. A long career, television, movies, and to me, Shindig. And Donna, I'm flattered, I'm honored. How are you? How are things? How have you been, my dear?
Oh, Tony, you warm my heart. Remembering those times, and it's all so relevant, you know, when I think about the music that my mother and well, I mean, I can relate somewhat to the 40s big bands and my grandmother's music, you know, European opera, but to know that, you know, our music in the 60s has lived on with true relevance for now how many generations? At least 3 that I'm aware of. You know?
Yeah, for certain.
Phenomenal.
And you guys were, I mean, the talent that you had on that show, the Righteous Brothers, yourself, Tina Turner, Billy Preston, Aretha, and I mean, it must have been, I mean, I'm going to ask a very dumb question here. What was that like?
You know, when you're in it, it seems just so normal. But, you know, I had already signed a 7-year contract with Dr. Pepper when I turned 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to leave my kind of public high school life behind. And by the time I started doing Shindig, I was 17. And that literally became my senior year. You know? and I know lots of people have fond memories of their senior year, and that really was the highlight of my career. Just being around not just talented people, but the whole culture of the British invasion, and Elvis kind of being, you know, locked up in the sound stages and his hair color changing from that beautiful golden color to kind of a black shoe polish. And, you know, it was all about bringing music as a culture together, blacks and whites on the same stage, and feeling so natural, you know. I mean, that's what it was really like. And it's all because of Jack Good, who was the producer.
Now, where did you shoot that? Was that shot in Hollywood or Santa Monica?
Well, there's a sound stage at ABC on Prospect and Talmadge in kind of the East Hollywood area,
mm-hmm.
Which is, you know, an extremely gentrified neighborhood now. Los Feliz, Silver Lake, that whole area is very alive now, and that's where I did Shindig for a year and a half at that sound stage, which was right next to the soundstage of General Hospital.
Isn't that something? And I'll tell you, to this day, I think it's sadly he's kind of lost to history, but I'm basically a New York kid, or a New York metropolitan area kid. I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, and every Memorial Day there's a remembrance of WABC Radio, Music Radio 77. They go through the great WABC disc jockeys, of which there were several, but you know, for what little I saw of him, I thought Jimmy O'Neill was perfect. I just thought he just set up he really was something. And what was his background and what was his life like? I know so little about him.
Well, first of all, he was truly on stage and off stage just a very, very humane, lovely person. He started out as a DJ. I mean, that voice. You know, he was one of the DJs.
Hey, howdy, hi. I can't do it. I can listen to it, but I can't do it. Yeah, it's really something, and he set you guys up so brilliantly.
Well, I wish I would have known him better. Everyone was a bit older than me, at least 10 years, and so I didn't really get to know a lot of people socially because I was young and very chaperoned, and Dr. Pepper was always looking out after me, and but so I can't really give you a lot of details, but I just know that for the year and a half that we worked together, that he was genuine, and he loved the music, and till the day he died.
Yeah, it's they really are, and I recommend to anybody, if you happen to see one of these things or pass, certainly watch it, because it's just the music is just fantastic to this day. Now, as far as your personal background, you were born in Boston or in the Boston area. Were you raised in Boston, or did you move west at an early age?
Oh yes, well, actually, it's not an easy answer. I actually wrote my autobiography. I haven't published it yet, but I was born in Newton, Massachusetts, and at 5 weeks old, my mother flew back out to the West Coast with me and raised me there, kind of on the west side, near the ocean, in a place called Mar Vista.
Right. Near Santa Monica.
And which gave me near Santa Monica. We used to go to the beach at Venice, and Muscle Beach and the Santa Monica Pier. That was kind of like and the Venice Canal. That was all part of our backyard kind of activity growing up.
Yeah, and you started music, I guess, at a pretty early age commercially. I mean, obviously you're at Shindig, it was your senior year of high school, but you had actually started before then.
I made my first commercial when I was 8, and that was for a radio commercial, and I sang on that. And then I appeared on the Mickey Mouse Club when I was 10, and did some odd things, Playhouse 90, and I was always performing and recording. And but until I was about 14, I was signed to do what they call demos for a publishing company.
Ah, okay.
And they signed Glenn Campbell, me, Johnny Rivers, a few people to do demos, and that was on Sunset Boulevard and Doheny, right at the landmark Turner's drugstore area, which is still there. And this fellow, Jimmy Bowen, came in from Texas, who was an artist, and decided to become the producer. And so I was his first production with the Page Brothers, and I sang a song that Glenn Campbell wrote for me called I'm So Lonely on one side, and then a Page Brothers song called Hands Off, which was actually played quite a bit all over the country. I don't know if it charted anywhere, but played, I know that I was notified it was banned in Boston. Hands off, don't touch, because I could learn to love you too much.
Back when things were banned in Boston, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's.
But Jimmy Bowen went on to produce people like Loretta Lynn and Conway Twitty, and then Garth Brooks, and I worked with him again when he was working at Warner Brothers at Reprise, recording Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. And so after 5 years, he produced me again.
Now, did you ever run into Frank or Dean?
Well, I was part of the Warner Brothers family, and so I used to go to Las Vegas and watch Frank perform.
So you got to see him. That's now. Did you ever run into any of the Beatles? Because, like you mentioned, you were there during the time of the British invasion, and there seemed to be a new British group every week, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, during that time, like I said, I was extremely protected, and on Shindig, the fourth show actually went to London and featured the Beatles.
I remember watching it.
Part of that show, but later on, I did go to San Francisco, where the band made the last waltz, and Ringo was running around the audience. Probably in a documentary, you'll see it. And so I kind of brushed shoulders with Ringo at that time. And then even a little bit later, in the early 80s, I started doing, acupuncture. And my acupuncture doctor revived George Harrison from kind of a comatose place in his life.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so George... Pardon?
No, please continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so George was one of his patients, and whenever he was in town, I would see him. But, and then vicariously, my son, who is a musician, ended up playing drums for Paul McCartney on his album that he did, I think, in 2004.
Wow, amazing.
With Nigel Godrich as the producer, and Nigel is the producer of Radiohead, who's very good friends with my son.
It's I mean, the people that you saw and you had to work with, and those that had to work with you. I mean, it was an amazing time. What particularly gets me is, and I think you're probably in rarefied air here. You're one of the few people that appeared on both Batman and the Monkees. And, those are shows that keep playing and playing and playing. And what was it like to be on Batman? I was able to talk to Francine York, and she still giggles about it. I mean, was it really, kind of funny and interesting thing to be on, or was it, I mean, you're here with Batman and Robin. What else could there be?
Well, first of all, I have the honor of going to these conventions, the Batman conventions, and being included and also in the Monkees conventions now that they're reuniting after Davy's passing. But back then, on the Monkees, I was featured as a bride-to-be to Davy, and so Davy and I hit it off very nicely. That was the year that I learned to drive, and I had my first car, which was a little red convertible Corvette, 1967. And I kind of hung out with him, so that it was like my big escapade in show business is, hanging out with Davy Jones. And he was a very lovely person. Adam West and Burt Ward were, to say the least, fun, And I love a man who can fill out their tights,
Oh, for sure. And I mean, the great part about watching Batman is, at least with me, I see things as an adult that I never, ever saw when I was watching it when I was 10 years old. And it really is, it's a show that has a wide appeal, and there's a lot of subtleties and a lot of humor that you really don't get until you're older. And to this day, it really, I remember you in it, and I remember some others, and I enjoy watching it even to this day. It's really something. Among all the other things you've done, it really puts you in a rarefied place for
entertainment
eternity, at least in my mind, and a lot of others. But what I thought was
very fun.
Yeah, and what I thought was fascinating, and I remember this as a very young lady at one point. You had left show business, And I remember I was heartbroken. I'm like, I'm not going to see her anymore. But we didn't for a time. And was that something as far as, had you had enough at that point, or was it the work, the chaperoning? It was like, okay, I can pick this up. What was the calculus at that time, Donna, as far as what was going through your mind and your heart?
That's a big question, Tony. And that's why I took 2 years to write my autobiography. It's still in kind of a rough stage, but I turned 21, and I was entering into my 5th year of working for Dr. Pepper. I was about to be married. There was a death in the family immediately after I was married, and I had some very intense stuff going on with my family because my dad basically was an artist who decided to change his profession and manage me when I signed my contract with Dr. Pepper. And that kind of convoluted the whole family dynamic. And so there were quite a few aspects, that influenced me to make that decision and be a full-time mom and be a wife and kind of slow down. And I'm so happy I made that decision because of the children that I have and who they are and what they've become. And so you really can't. At least as a woman, I felt that working, and if I had the option to be a full-time mom, that's what I chose.
And it's, I remember so many of us were heartbroken, and then we started to see you again as time went on, and then with the whole advent of social media, I think I've caught up with you. I and many others on or about maybe 2009 and 2010. It's like, wow, there's Donna Loren, and she's performing, and she looks great, and it just kind of made me, with all of the craziness and with all the things that I might have had going on in my life, or you and yours and others, it was just that thing. You thought about Shindig, and you thought, okay, what's she going to be singing this week? And it really warmed my heart, and it was just it was so honored when you friended me on Facebook, and then to come on my show, which is I can't believe I'm speaking with you, but that really kind of gave me a warm-hearted feeling to say, just a couple of things moving from the past to the present are just as they were, albeit with some changes, and it's nice when you have that feeling. It really is.
Well, I'm so happy that you feel that way, and re-entering kind of the public life is interesting, and I love meeting people, and I've always loved singing since I was 2 years old, and so that just comes natural to me, and that's just who I am. So I just had to go through a lot of changes. When, like I said, I wrote a book, and when it gets published, that will tell the tale.
Let us know, because we'd love to have you back on to discuss it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Really, really would. And believe me, our time gets away from us, as it always does in this show. And if I could stop time, I certainly would. We have many people watching today. Many people will see this also in YouTube as it goes out over the internet, and it'll play on many sites. Where can our friends and fans of yours, most importantly, see you and follow you, and what's happening in 2014 for Donna Loren?
Well, certainly you can go on my Facebook page. You can you can go on my website, which is donnaloren.net, and probably, I think, coming up in the summertime, I'm doing something in Los Angeles called the Hollywood Show, where I'll be there for a couple of days, and maybe I'll perform. I don't know. We haven't worked out the details, but that's what's happening for now.
And that's quite a bit. And listen, I'm honored. I'm pleased. I'm touched. Glad you're there and well. And we'll be cheering you along now as we did when we were kids watching Shindig. And you really were our sweetheart, and you are today. And Donna, thanks so much. Thanks also to Jared. He's been a gentleman. He's been a dear, and just a pleasure to work with. And do let us know what's happening, and we'll let our guys know what's happening with you as well. Thanks so much.
You're so welcome, darling.
Thank you. Being called darling by Donna Loren. How about that? Thanks so much, Donna. Anyway, so that was Donna, and wow. I take a moment to compose myself, and we will be back with Howard Peretz of the Sports Finish Index. 98.6. Yeah, it's not my temperature. See you right back in a bit.